I have never known such terror in my life. And then Hebrew music came into the captain's cabin to mock us. Everybody was asleep on deck. I looked at Jenny and I said, what do we do? She said, there's only one thing we can do. I said, what? She said, let's dance. That's what we did. We danced to Hebrew music. It went on for about 15 minutes and we carried on through the night. And at midday on the 23rd of August 2008, our Irish captain climbed up the post, the mast, and he said the most beautiful words I've ever heard after It's a Girl. He said, land ahoy. And there in the distance was Gaza, rising out of the sea, rising out of the mist. And we'd done it. And as we got closer, we could see dots on the horizon and we couldn't make out what they were. We got a bit closer and we're looking like this. And then we realized that the dots were people. Thousands and thousands of people. Thousands of men had slept on the beach for 3 nights, listening on little radios, unable to believe that the outside world had finally come to see them. That it wasn't an enemy ship, that friendly ships were coming to see them. And as we got closer, we were hit by a wall of sound. And it was this, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. It was beautiful. And it was the best day of my life, and all of our lives. 5 days later, everyone was leaving on the boat. We didn't have passports stamped for entry, so we had to leave by the boats we came in on, and I have no explanation for you, except that Allah knows and I do not know. I did not get on the boats. Maybe it was arrogance. Maybe I thought, maybe I did have a moment of thinking, I'm Lauren Booth, I have a British passport, I can leave whenever I like. But bits of paper mean nothing when you're with the Palestinians. And I watched the boats going, and my 2 daughters were aged 4 and 6, and they were thousands of miles away, and I didn't get on the boat. 2 days later, I went to the Egyptian border, thinking now it's time to leave. I've got everything I need for my article, and the Egyptian, I remember, he looked at my passport. He was part of the Mubarak regime. He looked at it like this and he went, Lauren Booth, you're not going anywhere. I said, what do you mean? I said, this is a day. Is the crossing open for internationals today? Yes. Well, I've got an international passport. I want to go home. He said, you're not going anywhere. He said, the Israelis want you to feel like a Palestinian. You love the Palestinians? Go live like the Palestinians. And that was it. I was under blockade. I hope you never have a feeling that you're in an elevator and it plunges 70 stories in a few seconds, but that's how I felt. But I have to say, I thank God every single day for the sweetest month of my life. Because, sisters, what months was I there? 4 weeks it took me to get out. And what month was it? Can you guess? Ramadan. Wallahi, can you imagine Ramadan in Gaza? Can you imagine? Ramadan for non-Muslims is a holy month when the gates of heaven are opened and the blessings pour upon the believers. And Allah loves the oppressed, and every person in Gaza is oppressed, and I was there. I was in Gaza. 30 days and nights. One night, I was taking a bag of meat to a poor family in a place called Rafah. Remember I told you about that young man in 2000 who I'd seen on TV? He was from Rafah, and now I was in the TV. I was going to Rafah refugee camp. I knocked on the door of what is called a home, but is actually a hovel, And the mother opened the door to me like this. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh for them. Which means peace and blessings be upon you. You're welcome. I looked at her, and as much as I love you all for the sake of Allah, not one of you will give me a smile so sweet. Not one of you will be able to mimic the glow in that lady's face. She was shining from her skin, she was shining from her eyes. I'd never seen anything like it, and I thought, nah, she can't be poor. She can't be as poor as everybody around here. Maybe it's like Aladdin's cave. When I go through this door, she's going to be rich. I guarantee it. And I walked past her, and what did I see? An empty cement room with nothing in it at all, except a rug on the floor and 6 old mattresses around the walls that would be pulled down at night for more than 10 people to sleep on. And I felt angry. For the first time since knowing Muslim people, I felt angry at this Islam. I didn't understand about fasting. I'd had enough of poverty. I'd had enough of hunger, being in Gaza for almost a month. So I turned to this lady and I said, very roughly, tell me why you fast in Ramadan. You say that your God loves you, so he asks you to do without food for 30 days. I say, you're hungry the whole year, so what? You say your God loves you, so you do without water for 30 days. I say the water in Gaza is polluted 365 days a year. So what? Why do you fast in Ramadan? I don't understand why. And she looked at me and she said, I fast in Ramadan to remember the poor. Subhanallah. I fast in Ramadan to remember the poor. The poorest woman I'd ever met in my life didn't feel as poor as her neighbours, and she wanted to remember them. And I thought at that moment, I felt a key go into my heart, and I thought, if this is Islam, I want to be Muslim. If this gratitude to God for whatever he can give you in every single day is Islam, I want to be Muslim. If this love for your fellow human beings, so that even in poverty, you can worry more about other people is Islam, I want to be Muslim. This gratitude is Islam, and this belief is Islam. I want to be Muslim. But you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the names he gives mankind in the Quran is the forgetful. Time and again, Allah tells us, O mankind, I give you warnings and you forget. I guide you, you forget. We're called the insan, the forgetful. So guess what happened? That lady said salam alaikum, shut the door, and I forgot all about Allah. But you know what? He never forgot about me. I went back immediately to sinning and selfishness and arrogance and cruelty, and Allah never forgot about me. He was still guiding me, same as he guides you. And this is the meaning of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. However far we go, he is with us, because he loves us. The next 2 years, as I say, I went about the business of being a cruel, mean and selfish piece of flesh, driven by dunya, driven by a wish for success and money. I wasn't so much a mother as an automaton. My children were shackles around my neck, my husband a hobby and an annoyance. And the universe did revolve around me. The ultimate shirk is to love yourself that much, to worship yourself. And then in 2010, guess which month? Ramadan. I went to Iran to report on the Al-Quds Day rally. Al-Quds Day rally, to remember Jerusalem as an Islamic Palestinian capital. And I had one day off. And on my one day off, a friend of mine, Nargis, she's an Iranian British girl, she said, let's go on a road trip. You should see some of Iran. And we were going to Esfahan. Esfahan is 6 hours from Tehran. Halfway through our drive, in Ramadan, we heard the adhan go for Maghrib, sunset prayer, and we were outside one of the most beautiful mosques in the Muslim world. White towering minarets, huge courtyards, and even doves flying around. Just a coincidence, right? Anyway, we might as well go in. So I put on a chador, which is like a black cape. I look like a giant penguin. And I made wudu. I cleaned myself Islamically before I went in. For the first time, I cleaned myself Islamically before I went into a masjid. And when I walked in, it was very busy. It was Maghrib time, and they're not quiet places, the women's side of masjid, for anyone who's not been. Kids doing cartwheels, they seem to think it's a gymnasium. Mums with bits of bread, it was noisy, it was a busy day. And I thought, I'm going to make one quick prayer, sit down and have a nose about. Because I was a tourist. And I made a simple prayer. And I said, Dear Allah, I didn't know Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear Allah, I have nothing to ask of you today because you've given me such a great life. But I do ask one thing. Please, 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 bless the Palestinians. And then I sat down. And as I sat down, I was engulfed by a feeling of such peace, such tranquility that I couldn't move. I just sat looking at my hands, lost. I don't know how long I sat there, but this feeling took away all the pain in my heart. It was as if my heart was being washed. I didn't have that voice. You know that voice you've probably got on now? Did I turn the dishwasher off? The kids have got to do this. I wonder how long this is going to go on for. What am I doing afterwards? You know? I had silence for the first time in my adult life, and the feeling was so beautiful that I'm telling you here and now, if I never saw my beautiful daughters again but could have that feeling and be in that place, you would give up everything to go there. I sat there and I looked at my hands, and a group of young women came over to me, and I have no explanation for this. And they sat in a circle around me and just stared at me, and I sat there quietly. And then this young Iranian girl put her hands on my shoulders, and she looked me in the eyes, and she said, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And I realized at that moment that I was no longer a tourist to the Muslim world, that I was inside the Ummah. That I was allowed to feel the love that travels around the Ummah, the Muslim world, every day. This love that sisters share between us, I was being allowed to feel it. After a while, my friend Nargis said, we should go now, we've got a hotel. I said, no, I'm going to sleep here on the floor of this mosque tonight. She said, okay, my mum and I will join you. Subhanallah. And the next morning, I prayed Fajr in the masjid. And then I went outside, and it was maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up, it was beautiful. And then my conscious mind woke up, and it said this: you can't be Muslim. You don't know about Islam, you can't wear hijab, you can't give up pork, you can't give up drinking, you're not like these people, you don't know the prophets, You don't know if this is true. You don't know who God is. You don't know. I was having a massive panic attack. Because I thought, what am I doing? I can't be Muslim. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? If you feel that peace in a mosque, what does it mean? I knew it meant that Islam was the truth. There was one God, Allah, God. The Prophet, Muhammad, was the final prophet. The books were real. The last day was real. The angels were real. Imagine having that realization in one night. The hair would leave your head. Anyway, a voice in my mind said to me, calm down, you'll be okay. You don't have to do anything. Just go on with your life, you're going to be okay. I calmed down, took a deep breath and thought, yeah, what am I freaking out about? I just had a nice feeling in a mosque, so what? Get on with your life. I got into the car with my friend and we carried on our road trip. But you see, there was a bit of a difference in me. Every time we passed a mosque, I wanted to pray. In fact, I needed to pray. But it was another 24 hours before I was finally alone in a hotel room and I could again put my head to the ground, because submission, I'll tell you, that moment when you're a new Muslim and you put your head to the ground and you accept the universe doesn't go around you and you're not having to hold it up. You know, we talk a lot in this day and age, we're juggling the balls, I'm controlling my life. Everything's going around me, the kids are here. Imagine if you go, I'm going to do what I can, but I know it's up to you. How amazing is that feeling to submit, to accept that you are small, weak, feeble, and God is greater than you. It was the greatest relief of my life. I was so happy. 7 days later, I walked into a masjid in London and I said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, and I became Muslim. Alhamdulillah. And I guess what I'd like to end my talk on tonight are two things. There's a couple of things I forgot to tell you actually. I was getting dawah. Dawah is the invitation to Islam, is information and invitation about Islam. I was getting dawah during that period, that 5-year period, but not formally, because as I told you, I was never going to be Muslim. So some people, Allah knows different people's hearts. I'm not intellectual. I'm not particularly clever. But I feel with my heart a lot. So Allah came to me through my heart. So I was getting dawah from one place. Somalian taxi drivers in North London. May Allah bless them. They are the unrecognized army of Allah. And I mean that in a peaceful way. I would get into the taxis and I'd say, Salam alaikum, as I'd been to the West Bank and Gaza, and they'd say, Wa alaikum salam, as the Prophet said to his wife, Khadija, and I'd get a hadith. And I'd probably get some Quran, and I'd get ayah, and I'd get surah, and as long as the car was going, I'd have 3 lectures, whether I wanted them or not. Now, I still get into taxi cabs in North London, and often they're driven by Somalians, but now, I am a sister. So I say to them, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it's very interesting. They always say the same thing back to me, and it's a question. Are you married? There's no hadith, no surahs, no lessons, just are you married? So somebody will tell me one day why they do that. So how third maybe. I want to leave you with this about gratitude. We are all blessed. You are very blessed in this community. We're all blessed with eyes that work, hearing that works. But I want to share something with you now to remind you of that, because alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks is for Allah, is at the core of our belief, and you should be at the core of every day of your life. In April, are you going to be able to do that? In April, I went back to Gaza, and I went to a place called Bayt Hanun. Beit Hanun used to be a little farming village on the edge of the Gaza Strip with beautiful orchards and sage bushes and all kinds of fruit and vegetables. But it's now stolen by Israel for a buffer zone. So it means it's where they send their tanks when they invade the Gaza Strip. And thousands of families there live there, and tens of thousands of children. I went at Maghrib time, which is dusk, to visit a poor family. Now, if any of you have children, you'll know that mums introduce their children with pride. First you give their name, then you give an attribute. So I might say, my daughter Alex is wonderful at writing poetry. They don't have the opportunity to do that anymore in Gaza. The mothers in Gaza introduce their children by their name and their injury. So I went into this house and there were 15 children knocking about, most of them with no shoes, and it was just, you'll see, just an empty cement room. And there were two mothers and one husband. His taxi was broken, so he couldn't support them anymore. Terrible poverty. And she started to show me her children. And she brought up a 6-year-old boy and his skinny little thing, so cute. And she said, look at his leg. And down it was terrible white scarring. I said, what's that? She said, white phosphorus. In 2009, Israel rained white phosphorus over Gaza. Now, I don't think many people understand what white phosphorus is. It's napalm with cancer. Napalm with cancer. So that boy had it on his leg. Then she introduced me to her 16-year-old son. She pulled up his trouser leg to the knee and she ripped off a huge plaster like that. And I went, huge fresh scar. An Israeli sniper just shot him in his leg outside the house. There were two little girls sitting and they were just doing this. I said, well, are they disabled? She said, they haven't spoken since 2009. They've had shell shock. And on it went. And I went into a back room and I prayed, and when my head touched the ground I started to cry. And I started to cry so hard that I remembered Jacob in the Quran, Jacob. He cried so much when he lost Said Yusuf. When Joseph was taken away for years, he went blind, and I thought, yeah, you can go blind. When you feel this sad, you can go blind. And as I was thinking that, the lady called Iman, the mother, came in and she put her hand on me and she said, are you okay? Why are you crying? I said, I'm crying because I hate this. I hate this for you. I hate that your children are going to keep getting injured. I hate that you're going to stay in poverty. I hate that the world knows and we do nothing, and I hate that I'm here and I can't help you, and I hate this. And she looked at me and she said, but we're so happy. We have Allah, and Allah loves us. And if we are patient, He has promised us Jannah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So we will watch this and then we will make a dua and we will all remember Alhamdulillah, inshallah.